Is the headline in New Orleans tonight certainly seems like ground zero for what may very well turn out to be the storm of our lifetime.
At least one levee has broken in New Orleans.
And with much of New Orleans now underwater, authorities are focused on search and rescue before it's too late.
A storm on track to be the biggest hurricane ever to hit the United States.
Hurricane Katrina forever changed my life. But more importantly, Hurricane Katrina completely changed the Coast Guard. We, as in the Coast Guard, found out that we were capable of operations that never, ever occurred, ever.
Because of the magnitude of the event and the number of people that were out there that needed help, we weren't really given any direction except for just go out there and find people.
It was like, the problem's over there, go solve a problem. And we weren't told to go to this place and go do this thing. You were just told to go over there and do your thing. And the aircraft commander is the one that was making decisions on this is where we're gonna go, or this is where we're gonna go. We're sitting in the door and like, there's another family over there, let's go get them. And the helicopter stops and you go over there and get them.
And today we do grid searches and patterns. We had none of that. We weren't prepared. We had no idea that this was going to come. You know, today we've got the assets, we've got the plans, we're tried and true now. But back then it was winging it. It was, we're going here, you go here, and we'll meet back up here whenever.
I think you don't realize how big your hometown is until it's just you and 3 other people trying to check every house.
We were right in the playbook.
It's different. It's different from a normal search and rescue case because we're fighting for our lives too, because we're right in the thick of it, and you know we're no better off than the people are that we're rescuing. So we were right there, and we were making those. We weren't afraid to make decisions.
Nobody that was out there got trained to operate in the environment we were operating in. We were trained to pick people up off of boats, out of the water, maybe out of a clearing in the land, but none of us were trained to pick people up off of roofs, to pick people up out of windows, off of covered balconies. All these things had to be kind of figured out on the fly. So not only are we, you know, the Coast Guard is a very resourceful bunch of people too, and we just get the job done. We figure out a way to do it.
I just remember that like informal debrief and all of us sharing our stories, and never animosity. There was never like hard feelings about anything. It was always like, let's learn from this. Like I learned from my mistake. Let's make this better. Let's do what we can, and just absolutely no training.
Middle of operations, we had the AST shops, or we had other coasties run into hardware stores, buying chainsaws, axes, anything that we could think would help us bust into roofs, because we started to realize that there were people being trapped inside roofs. Most of us got a fire axe, which I used quite a bit. I busted through a few roofs and extricated a few people through the actual hole that I made through the roof, and but we'd never been trained on it. They had chainsaws for us, and I've never used a chainsaw for my life, ever in my entire life, and I basically got pulled aside and was given 30 minutes of training before I picked it up and went out on the helicopter. It's not like that anymore, but we very successfully did something that we never did with tools that we'd never used before.
We quickly prepared. You know, it wasn't after Katrina, everything recovered. We had hurricane trailers now with all of the generators and beds and water and MREs. We still have those same things in use today at our units that we have. We have the tools and the assets ready and a plan. We had no urban search and rescue. With today, you know, we're sending our members to training with flooded cities, houses. We're teaching them how to pull people off of roofs. We knew nothing about getting a chainsaw, cutting a hole in a roof to pull somebody out of the attic. We just figured it out.
How to do it safely. We just knew how to drive boats and knew the area.
Right.
And when it came for Katrina, the Coast Guard was not prepared for this.
No.
So everybody on the outside, you know, they praised the Coast Guard for their response and what we did. And we, as the Coast Guard, have the innate ability to adapt to almost anything that's put in front of us, and however we have to do it, and that's what we all did. We weren't trained for any type of search and rescue, off of a street, or going up to a hospital or whatever. We weren't trained for that. But since then, we've been able to take that, and the Coast Guard has taken all these lessons learned and has moved forward and continually progressing to kind of master this when we're called.
I just remember sheets. That was the big deal. Like, people had sheets on the roof to show that there was like people in that house. Some people had taken the sheets and kind of rolled them up and like were trying to spell help on the top of it. Other people were like they would make a number 4 of the sheets, so there was like 4 people in that house. It seemed like never ending. Like, it seemed like it was something was unsurmountable. There were so many sheets, and there was so like this, and we're talking about miles and miles of territory that was underwater. Like, you saw their rooftops and a little bit of their house, and then like a sheet sitting on top, and you had no idea what was going on down there, but there was thousands of sheets. So where do you start? Like, is there a system to this? And there wasn't a system, right? It was just like, whatever you make eye contact with, we're going there, we're going there, we're going there. We're going there because there's a helicopter here already, so you're gonna skip one, and you're gonna go to that one instead.
It was a little overwhelming because it felt good to be helping as many people as you can, but it just felt like there was no end to the people that were in need of help.
I do have a very vivid memory of, it felt like it was just us for a little while, and then boat forces showed up, and you started seeing the boat forces go into the neighborhood, and I felt like a great relief that the boat forces had showed up. You started seeing airboats, which I didn't even know the Coast Guard had airboats. But you started seeing Coast Guard airboats going through the streets. You started the boat forces going through the streets. And you knew that the people that you weren't going to get were going to be taken care of by somebody else.
When we're done rescuing, it's not like we got to go home and sleep in our own house or anything. We're here. And the only building that had air conditioning was the admin building. So we were hot racking it. Whenever you weren't flying, if you weren't working, you'd go find a mattress. We put them on the conference room you guys were at earlier. And if there was a space open, you'd sleep there.
Pretty much all of everybody in the station probably slept in a room smaller than this one.
People were sleeping in the back of vehicles. In the truck beds.
People brought tents.
And something else is, when a lot of us came back, we only had what we had with us. So that may have been one uniform. So you're wearing one uniform for days and days and days. It's muddy, it's wet, and that's all you have. At the station itself, we didn't have, I don't think, the sewer, water, anything like that worked for at least a week. So you couldn't flush toilets, you couldn't do any of that. So I remember we didn't have potable water. The only way to go and take a shower was you had a 16.9 ounce water bottle, and that's literally pour it on yourself, clean, and that's what you had. But that was the only way we had to somewhat get clean and get prepared for the next day.
I actually thought the hardest part was the downtime. The downtime between flights, when you try to sleep, as I said, all you see is rooftops when you close your eyes.
So seeing families and seeing them reunited and their faces when they actually realized, everybody thought, to me, felt like they thought only their neighborhood was flooded. And it wasn't until we got airborne and started flying away that you could see them peering out the windows, and then they start crying because they're like, this isn't just my neighborhood, this is the whole city, But seeing stuff like that, like just the faces of the people that you rescue, that was motivation enough to keep going.
We were going out nonstop through that rescue mission, and when it started getting more into the recovery phase and the rescue was kind of over, the Coast Guard was able to just scale back a little bit, and they started trying to have other people that were coming in to take over for us, so then we could have a little bit of time off to not just for ourselves because we've been working so much, but then again we lived here, so we had to take care of our houses and had to take care of our families, make sure everything was done.
It wasn't until the texting started to come back in on cell phones that I was able to get a text out and find out where my wife was and that she was safe. And I don't even remember when that was.
What did it feel like getting to see your wife again after such a long stretch?
You remember when you were a kid and you walked downstairs Christmas morning and you saw the tree and the gifts? That's nothing compared to what I felt when I saw her. Sorry.
I mean, all of our families were out for the most part, but most of us lost everything. Katrina, and then right behind Katrina was Rita, and
Rita mopped up the
you
rest
didn't know
of
where
everything.
you were gonna go. We had a job to do. We got our job done, and we were so young. We didn't even think about it. Just do your job. But after it all slowed down, and you realized, all right, now I've got to find a place to put my young family. I've got to rebuild. What are we gonna do? And I don't think any of us was ready for that.
I think over three-quarters of the station lost their home or
Cars.
had to relocate. Everyone that left their vehicles lost, and they were in a pile in the corner.
It was an experience that, obviously sucked for all of us going through it and losing all our stuff, but it's also one that I don't think, we would trade for anything.
I think it was a defining moment, and I know for sure my career, probably everybody.
Definitely all of ours, I'd say. I mean,
there was no more. I'm coming up on my 4 years. I'm going to get out. Well, here we are, 23 years later, and we're still doing it. And that's thanks to the crew that we had.
Yeah.
That crew, I would take that crew anywhere.
The rescues I did during Hurricane Katrina was the vast majority of the rescues I did in my entire career. And just to be a part of something that was that big and that had that much attention, it's very satisfying and yeah, like I said, a source of great pride for me.
I use this term frequently, in that I joined the Coast Guard for 4 years, 23 years ago. During my first go-around was Katrina, and you felt like you were part of something major, and it became, for lack of a better term, addicting. Like I knew what this service was about after that, and I knew that this was the place for me. Like as we were picking people off at the roof, and we were actually rescuing people and not just training to rescue people, I knew that I found my niche, and I credit Katrina for one of the major reasons that I have stayed in the Coast Guard this long and continue to fly and pass my knowledge down to the young guys as an instructor still to this day, so that those guys can have the experience, like learn from my experience, and here's what I learned along the way, and this is what you guys need to know to do this mission.
I always tell my friends and family that ask me about it, it's like, if I could have my way, Katrina would have never happened, but unfortunately it did, and the only thing, I'm just glad I was able to be there to help people. Like nobody wishes this on anybody, but if you can help it in whatever little manner you can, whether it's in the back or in the front, like we were saying earlier, like it takes way more people than just the people that are on the news, the pilots and the flight mechs and the rescue swimmers. There's a lot of people behind scenes that are doing a lot of great things.
20 years later, how does it feel to be part of the rescue here in New Orleans?
we just did our job.
Yeah.
I think that's you'll find that across the Coast Guard even to this day. If you ask any Coast Guard member when they do something, just as Camp Mystic last week, with the AST-3, he said he just did his job, and that's exactly what we all did. We just did our job. Anyone else put in that situation, they would have did the same thing that we did. He told us to do it, and we went and do it.